Hey guys, this is B from Tay Talk Tech. I wanted to do a little bit more of a personal video today. Not going to be scripted. I just want to talk about a subject that's, very, very personally impactful. And also, I know that other people are impacted by this as well. Really, what I want to talk about is mental health in tech and really mental health in general. The world, the society that we live in, at least here in the United States, praises people for being able to push aside their emotions, not let their emotions get to them, and being objective, logical, rational, and things like that. But that doesn't take into account that human beings are emotional creatures. All of us, we all have emotion, and those emotions serve a very, very vital purpose in our lives. And we're told not to, we're told to push those down, not to express those, but that really has a large impact, and it's had a large impact on me. So just a little bit of background on me and like kind of like my mental health is that I was diagnosed with ADHD back in 2006. I've struggled my whole life and I just didn't know what it was. I thought that I was stupid. I thought that I was just dumb. I just couldn't get things that I was meant to, be a loser my entire life. And I went to go see a doctor and they were like, "Hey, yeah, we think you have ADHD." And I'm like, "Oh, so that explains it." And for some people, that may be the start of the whole new world for them. And it was for me for about 2 years. And I, well, let's see, about 3 years actually. About 3 years is what it was. And they put me on a few different medications that I tried. I tried Ritalin, tried Concerta, which is just long acting Ritalin, and then Adderall. And I it worked well. It worked great. But the thing was, is I started to like doubt. I just like I felt uncomfortable, and some people that would see me taking the medication would be like, "Well, why are you taking that?" I remember this girl in college, she's like, "You really need to stop taking those pills." And I'm just like keep in mind, I had not explained to anybody my condition because I was embarrassed. That's why I've been embarrassed about this since I got diagnosed. I didn't want to tell anybody. I didn't want people to judge me. I didn't want people to not like me because I have ADHD. And that is something that has stuck with me to this day. Now, you know, people's reactions to it was, that's what got me thinking. I'm like, do I really need this? Completely forgetting how just lost I was without the medication. And sometime around the fall of 2000, no, I'm sorry, during the summer of 2009, I stopped taking it. I just was like, I'm done. I was like, I can do this. I can pull myself up by my bootstraps. I can get through it on grit and just force myself to do it. And I got off of it. I started a job. I was working at Starbucks at the time, and I still was in college. What was I? I was like, I think my junior. Yeah, this would have been probably like my junior-ish year. Yeah, this actually would have been my junior year of college, and I was like, all right, I can do this. I can do this. I've been successful thus far, so clearly I'm capable of doing this and I don't need this medication. So I went in there and ooh boy, was I in for a ride. And I, went from, crap show to crap show, but it was tough. I couldn't think clearly. I had lost a lot of my ability to focus, especially on details and stuff like that. It affected me socially. I had forgotten about all of this stuff. This stuff was there prior to me being diagnosed with ADHD, but I just was like, oh, like okay. And I was like, no, I can do this, and I could do this, I could do this, and I kept going, I kept going, I kept going, and my life kind of slowly kept falling apart. And later during the fall semester, I actually just had a complete breakdown. I had a complete breakdown. It's the only like breakdown that I've ever had in my life was in college, and I I lost it. I stopped going to classes. I actually was very, very grateful that I had a lot of professors that were willing to kind of work with me on it. Not all of them did, and I have no problems with that because I didn't deserve anything, but some of them were willing to work with me, so I was able to go ahead and kind of get some credits for that semester, and it actually ended up delaying me by an additional semester. I was actually going to graduate in 4 years, but I ended up having to go back for an additional year. I'm sorry, additional semester. So yeah, like so I just completely had a breakdown And I remember I did try to go back on the Adderall briefly during the fall, but it's just I don't know. I just couldn't take it. I just felt so much shame around having a mental condition. I was like, no, if all these other people can do it, I can do it. Yeah, I'm gonna be the exception, and I'm fighting myself. And so I remember the night that I I tossed the pills away. One of my best friends was actually getting deployed to Iraq, and he called me, because he was literally like he's like on like the freaking tarmac on the plane. And he's like, yeah, man. He's like just telling me about he's going, and all that stuff. And we're just, getting some last chat in before I was gonna be able to talk to him for 6, 8 months. And, you know, um, that night and it actually had happened right before that. I remember it very, very vividly. I just remember talking to him. I was actually outside the university computer lab. And I was just like, I went and I took the pills and I threw them in the trash can. Didn't look back. And I'm pretty sure I probably talked to him about that night. And because I don't really remember the actual specifics of that conversation. I remember him telling me about what he was scared and stuff like that, and um but I don't remember if I told him about that night. But yeah, and then after that, my life proceeded to fall apart. For the rest of the semester, and I went back in the spring and I started doing some stuff that more interested me. Tried a couple of different things. I actually took musical theater, which I actually really love. I like singing, dancing, and all that kind of stuff. So it was a lot of fun. I think I took like another, because I thought I wanted to be maybe a drama major, but because I've always really liked the arts and things like that. But it wasn't going to be something that I was going to be able to do long term. No, I just knew the practicality of it, and stuff like that. But I still struggled. I struggled the entire semester. I think I was taking 4 or 5 classes, and I got through all of them, but it was a struggle, and I continued to struggle that fall semester. That again, this is a year after I'd stopped taking it, and keep in mind I'm doing a lot. Like I'm doing extracurricular activities, I'm working, and I was doing full load of courses at school. And the last semester in college, it was tough. I was taking 5 classes at three different colleges, just because I wanted to graduate. So it's pretty crazy. Like, and that's one thing. If you're not familiar with the condition of ADHD, that's one thing that we are good is we are very, very good at like navigating just lots of chaos. Like I actually thrive under chaos. I'm good under chaos. It's once like the chaos is done that I really struggle. Like just doing day jobs and just socializing and stuff like that. Because once my brain has time to think, it's game over. Brandon can no longer function, so it's tough. But yeah, yeah. So I eventually graduated in December of 2010. So I've been graduated for God like almost 13 years now. But yeah, I managed to do it. I had a girlfriend for a little bit. That didn't end up working out, but I had a existential crisis after that because I was like, well, what the hell do I do now? And I knew, yeah, I'm supposed to go and get a job and all that stuff, but I was just completely lost. And I started struggling again. Like I just and I was like so scared that I was gonna go have another breakdown, and I didn't want to do that. So I went and got help. I went and went to my there. I went back to therapy, and she directed me to a psychiatrist, and we put me back on medication. And this time around, it was a little bit different. I stayed away from the stimulants because stimulants just aren't for me, and that's what Adderall and Concerta and Ritalin are. They're stimulants. They stimulate your central nervous system, but that did not work for me because I tend to be on a little bit more on the anxious side of things, so and over focused type of thing. So that stuff really makes it worse. But yeah, so I went on this medication. This would have been in March of 2011, and I did. It was good. I was working 2 jobs at the time. I was working at my current employer. I was doing a different job then, but I was doing that. Plus, I was also working at Starbucks, and I proceeded to do all of that for the next 9 years. The next 9 years, and yeah, I had to pay off my student loan debt, so I was always busy and stuff like that. But I still didn't put my mental health first. Yeah, I was taking the medication, but think about it is medication is only one aspect of the process. And it's yeah, it's it's really really difficult when you're only handling one aspect of it, and keep in mind, we're just what I'm talking about here is I'm only handling the brain chemistry aspect, because that's what's happening when you're taking a drug. Is it's having chemical react, it's changing the chemistry in your body. And I was in therapy for a while, and but I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm good, and it was letting me live a life that I'd always wanted. But what I came to eventually learn is that I wasn't living the life that was mine. It was life that I thought that I should be living, that was other people's lives, and and things like that. I wasn't being true to myself. And so what I started doing is, probably in late 2019, is I slowly started tapering off of the medication. Is I was I actually got married in 2019, and so I yeah, I just slowly started tapering off. I was like, you know what, I thought it was gonna help me, because I was like, I don't like what this does to me, and all that. So I basically blamed the medication, and eventually I did get off of it. I stopped in January of 2021 is when I completely got off of it. And, things were fine. Things were fine for a while, and it's interesting, because one of the things that, if you're not familiar with ADHD, is we're good with novelty. So things that are new, exciting. And during that time, there was a lot going on. There was a lot of changes with my job and stuff like that. I was only working one job by this time. So, I was able to kind of keep myself focused. And, I'd built some decent habits when I was on the medication previously. So those got me by. But slowly, over time, over the next 2 and 3/4 years, is it started, my mental health started to decline again, and it was slow. It was a very, very slow process this time. And I was actually pretty successful. I actually got promoted. I changed jobs at my employer, and stuff like that. And I've helped them develop all sorts of things. And then slowly, like probably like the last 6 months, it just kind of started to deteriorate. And I was just like, I thought it was just anxiety. And I remember I started with a therapist back in May, and she's like, yeah, like she agreed. Fast forward, almost 6 months, and we have the dreaded conversation, what I always call the um, ADHD question. And she's like, I think this, did you ever think that maybe it could be ADHD? And I was waiting for you to say that, is what I that, and I dreaded it, and I was telling her, I was like, look, it's just, I don't like talking about this, because it makes me feel insecure. It makes me feel less than. It makes me feel like I am not good enough, like I'm not smart enough, that I'm bad, or something like that, you know, I don't want to have this condition, because I feel like it's going to stigmatize me. People are going to think less of me. Again, other people, other people, other people. If you've seen the pattern here, and like, that this is a thing that's run my whole life, is other people, because yeah, I do have some childhood trauma that I have been trying to work through. And the thing is as we were actually making progress on that childhood trauma, and reducing that anxiety levels, it actually started to impact my ability to function with the ADHD, because that's what was keeping me going, was the anxiety. And the thing is it's just not a healthy recipe, like when you're anxious 24/7, and it sucked. I dated a few girls, and and the problem is that I get overly focused on stuff, with the ADHD. So I all I do is I think about things, and it's usually like negative things, and it would just drive me insane. And it affected my ability to have a relationship with other people, because I eventually ended up getting divorced from my ex-wife. And I've been wanted to step out dating again. We got divorced in like 2021 ish time. So I was like, hey, let me get back out there and just see what's out there. And I kept obsessing about stuff, like, oh, they're not gonna like me, this and that. And and I thought, again, that was anxiety, trauma, and stuff like that. But then I talked to my therapist, and we eventually, like I said a few weeks ago, she was like, you ever think it was the ADHD? And I'm just like, it was dreaded, and I remember I told her, I was like, look, I just don't completely believe this. I was like, and the reason that is because if you look at these symptoms for ADHD, and you look at the symptoms for what's called complex PTSD, or sometimes can be called childhood PTSD, there's a lot of overlap, like a ton of overlap. But the difference is really going to be in the details. And once I started doing my own independent research, I had to I had to, accept it. And that's one thing that never happened, is it was never explained to me thoroughly. Nobody ever really educated me on it, which is so vitally important when you're talking about any condition, anything in life. It's you want to get educated on the topic. And it's it's eye-opening, the the way that just learning about yourself, and the way that you operate, and knowing that it's not you, because this wasn't like this condition is not me. It is a part of me, but it's not me. It's not my whole story. And that is a very, very hard thing to accept. And I'm still working on that. And looking at all of those, just the different aspects of it, because there's a lot that goes into ADHD. Is it's like regulation dysfunction. It involves the prefrontal cortex and the cerebellum. Prefrontal cortex at the front, cerebellum's at the back. Prefrontal cortex is your executive functioning, kind of top down functioning. It allows you to control yourself and stuff like that. And the cerebellum basically coordinates everything with the different parts of the brain and stuff like that. And like with my condition, my emotions would be all over the place. Literally, I'd be just sitting there and I'd start crying like uncontrollably. And it's just like, what the heck, and I've always been like that. I remember being a kid and that's what I was like. And I was also very sensitive to like sounds, like babies crying. Oh my God. Like you think it's bad for, it was way worse. Like I was like, screeching nails on a chalkboard bad, and people dropping stuff. Like I remember I was at the grocery store recently and this person like dropped something and I just looked at them and I was just like, don't you know that bothers me so. But you know what though, that's the thing, is it doesn't bother other people, but it bothers me. There's smells, certain textures, patterns, like I like they trigger me emotionally, and I have a really hard time with them. It's crazy because we used to go to, like, my mom used to go into craft stores and they would always have like certain smells, especially when you're going through certain sections, and I would just get sent like my emotions and all my sensory would be overloaded just like walking through there, and I just thought that I was weird. Like I was just, oh, I'm just broken or something like that, because being picked, I got picked on a lot, so there was that aspect of it, and things like that. Um, so it was hard, and I just reading this stuff and I'm like, uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. And I'm like I like, when my therapist made the case, I even told her, and as a person with ADHD, we're really, a lot of us are talkers. And I'd always felt this compulsion to talk. Like I had to be talking all the time. That it was just something that I just felt all the time. And you know, I told her, like, I was like, "You've rendered me speechless. I've got nothing," and that's very rare, especially if, especially if you know me. I can talk about just about anything, but yeah, I was rendered speechless, and I was like finding it really hard to argue here. So that's when I left, and I went off and did my own. I spent the entire week between that one and the next one, um, doing my own research, and that's when I realized that, one, I got the education, and two, that I really have no choice. This is me. It's part of me, and I would be lying if I said that like that I was good with it, that I believe it 100% and I'm okay with it, but that would be a lie. I'm still working on that part of it, the self-acceptance part. But that comes with some of the childhood trauma as well. There's some overlap there, and things like that. So I am excited to be able to go ahead and explore this more, to be able to and be able to get out of this, and like take down that anxiety a little bit more, and just be able to be myself and enjoy life, because I've never been able to do that when you're lost walking around the world. um it sucks. You're always looking for something that you just never I couldn't find. Looked for years, decades, and I was never able to find it. And the funny thing is I would like I anybody that's suffering, I've got love for you. I would be there for my friends who are suffering and things like that. But the funny thing is, the ironic thing is that I have a hard time with it with my own mental health and judging myself. I don't judge anybody else. I don't care. I really don't care. Like when people are like, "Oh, I'm bipolar," I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool. Thanks for the heads up." I'm like, it doesn't bother me. I'm like, okay, cool. So, like say if they're having some trouble, then I'm like, "Oh, hey, look, yeah, yeah. What can I do to help?" and stuff like that. I'm open minded because I'm one of the least judgmental people that you'll meet. I don't like gossip drama too much. And things like that. So, but I still find myself judging myself with it. And this is something I know I'm going to come to terms with eventually. I'm going to be excited about it and accept it, and I'm going to be able to move on with my life. I know I'm going to get there. And I just wanted to share this because I wanted to share just a couple pieces of like some statistics. And some people may be like, I think you're going to talk about tech, but yeah, but I wanted to give you my experience because, you know, having a condition can be chronic condition can be very, very lonely, especially when you're feeling shame around it. And I wanted to put that out there because I figured if I could share with you folks, the gracious people who watch my videos, I'm hoping that it'll bring less shame to me, but also bring less shame to you. Because ultimately, and I'm sorry, I'm getting a little emotional here. My goal with this channel has been to help people, and I want to do that in any way that I can. And that doesn't like if I can sit here and share some of my struggles with other people and you can benefit from that, that's what I want to do. Because a couple of statistics from like mental health and tech is 51% of tech professionals have been diagnosed with a mental health condition. 71% of tech workers said their productivity is affected by mental health, and 57% of tech industry employees reported burnout. So, and you see it a lot. I've seen a lot of people talking about, imposter syndrome and feeling not good enough. And I know exactly how you feel. And the crazy thing is I, I always tell people, I'm like, yeah, you can do it. You can do it. You can do it. But I have a hard time telling that to myself and believing it for myself. And I know that a lot of other people do that. I just want to let you know that you're not alone. Um, that you've got people out there um, who are just like you. It's just a matter of, looking for them and letting them in and stuff like that. And that's one thing that I want to do is I want to, be able to be more open about like my struggles and, and the good parts, because it's not all bad, right? We always focus on the bad part of a condition. Like even if you're talking about anxiety, like, because of the fact that I've suffered anxiety my entire life, I have cat-like reflexes. Like I like something will be falling off the desk and I will drop my hand exactly where it's going to land. I can't do that consciously. I can't. But because of all the anxiety that I've had my entire life, it's just one of those things where I'm like, boom. It's freaky the first time, like, it happens. And sometimes it's bad, especially if it's like a sharp thing, because I've had that happen before, that I'm grabbing like a knife by its blade. And I'm like, oh crap. Like, luckily I haven't had any like, cuts or anything like that. But there's always going to be good sides. Um, and you got to find that. You got to find the silver linings. You got to look at it from a different perspective. And yeah, I really hope that you find this video helpful. Thank you very much for watching this video and all my other videos. And I'm hoping to get back on it. I've just been kind of going through this stuff, so that's why I like the videos kind of slowed down. And we're also working a lot of overtime at work, so there's that as well. But I am planning on eventually getting back into more regular posting. So again, thank you very much for watching this video, watching all my videos. Remember, mistakes make you better, so keep on making them. Thank you so much for watching my video and have the greatest of days.